Toronto Maple Leaf star Auston Matthews still hasn't signed an extension, but there's no need to panic. And how does his signing affect future Leafs RFAs? We'll discuss this and much more coming up on this episode of Hattrick HQ. Hi, I'm your host KC alongside my co-host Mark Pye, and welcome back to Hattrick HQ. And before we get into this video, I just wanted to say that 97% of you guys aren't subscribed, so if you're looking for a place for daily NHL content, look no further, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to hit 250 before the season starts, and we'd love to see that happen. But with that said, let's get right into the first topic of this video, which is no need to panic, Leafs fans. Which obviously we're talking about Auston Matthews. Still hasn't signed his contract extension for this upcoming season. I know a lot of Leafs Nation is starting to come up with their own theories on why he's starting to why he hasn't signed yet and how much he's going to sign for. We're going to discuss this all in this episode. But as we take a look at Matthews over his career, last year he had 40 goals, 85 points, and the year prior I had 60 goals with 106 points. Obviously, a Calder Memorial Trophy winner, Maurice Rocket-Richard winner, Hart Memorial Trophy winner, Rocket again, and a Ted Lindsay Award. Obviously, a decorated player, Mark, for your Toronto Maple Leafs. How are you feeling right now that he hasn't signed an extension quite yet?
I do wish he was signed at this point, but I mean, if you kind of go back and look at Nathan MacKinnon when he signed, his camp in his going into his last year of the deal, he did sign on September 20th. So if we can get Matthews signed just going into training camp or maybe a few days into it, I would feel a lot better. Obviously, you don't want to let this linger over the season. I mean, if he goes into the season and scores 60, 70 goals, he might start asking for more, and that's where negotiations start to get a little hard. But at this point, I'm not too worried. I do think he wants to be in Toronto. Obviously, Toronto wants him to stay in Toronto. So at the end of the day, I definitely think he's re-signing.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I think especially Toronto wants to keep them there because, or keep him there because he is the face of their organization, and at the end of the day, he's the guy who is the face of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and obviously you want that guy, especially such a great talented player in your uniform, playing, putting his all in for your team. But it's pretty interesting how he hasn't signed yet. I thought he would definitely have been signed by now, but like you said, there's no need to panic because there's in other situations with other stars around the league, they wait later into the off season, maybe in early into the season. So I don't think we're going to see Matthews not sign back in Toronto. I think it might be later, a bit later than right now.
No, I definitely agree. And the thing is, you look at it, it might be a situation where there's kind of trying to get some cap flexibility. The league might be talking about how much of an increase we might get in the salary cap. So there's so many things behind the scene that I think is kind of delaying this a bit. It might be the year length, the exact dollar down to the penny. But like I said, I'm not too worried. And I think by mid training camp, we'll have an extension signed.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like you said, right now we don't know how much the cap's going to go up by next season. So I'm sure once GMs and stuff start finding that dollar amount up, I'm sure that they'll be able to ink a deal with Matthews as soon as they can. I think both parties are eager to get this signed and just get this weight lifted off their shoulders. But we're going to get into our second topic of the video, which is what will he sign for and how long? And as we look at some comparables here in Nathan MacKinnon, obviously when he signed a $12.6 million AAV contract, and he had 88 points last season, 111 points last season, 88 points the season before. And another comparable we look at here is Connor McDavid, who signed a $12.5 million AAV contract. And obviously, McDavid, you just look at his awards, look at his stats. Obviously, he's the best player in the entire NHL right now, with no debate. But Mark, do you think that we're going to see Matthews sign for more than what Connor McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon are making?
I think, especially with the cap kind of slowly moving its way up, they're kind of getting out of the phase of the COVID burden like they've had on the league. But I do think he'll sign for more than both these guys. Do I think he's better than both? That's up for debate on wherever you want to talk. But the thing is, you get a guy that's debatably the best goal scorer in the league. He's going into his prime now. And with the cap going up, I could see him signing somewhere between 13, 13 and a half, just for the bragging rights of having the more money. But the length is what's kind of scary. If you get him for 3 years or under, I think you really lose out on this. If you can get him from 3 to 5, that kind of gives you that window to grow the younger guys, like Timothy Littlegren come up, Joseph Wall. You got a couple prospects coming up that I think this 3 to 5 window is definitely where you want to be competitive this whole time. So any less than 3, I'd be worried, but 3 to 5, I would be happy. 8 years, I mean, I'd be ecstatic, but I mean, that's just a dream. But no, I think it's going to be around 13 to 13.5 million, but you know, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you there. I think he's probably going to be 13 and a half, maybe 14 if we're pushing it. I think we're going to see him on a longer term type of deal. I think a 5 to 7. I think if they're waiting this long for him to sign, I think they're obviously trying to work out a longer term deal that works out for both sides. And like Auston Matthews, obviously, he's not McDavid, but he is still one of the top 3 players in the NHL, in my opinion. I think, obviously, with the way the cap's going, he deserves to be making more money than the other guys because, we just seen Tom Wilson sign for like 6.9. So it's not out of pocket for him to be making 13.5. I don't think. I think it's just the way the league's going, and it's great to see because in other sports people are making ridiculous amounts of money, and I think with the way the league's going, I think players definitely deserve to be making more.
No, I completely agree. I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing with this now is how much the cap goes up and how this kind of makes the other players feel when they're going into their new contracts.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And we're going to get into our last topic of the video, which is how does this impact future Leafs RFAs? And as we take a look at the Leafs' top 4 on Cap Friendly here, obviously Auston Matthews, like we're talking about, going into the last year of his deal on $11.6 million contract. And we look at Nylander as well. Nylander going into the last year of his contract, only making 6.9, same that Tom Wilson's going to be making, which is crazy when you think about it. And next year, obviously, we're going to be looking at Mitch Marner and John Tavares for extensions. A little bit into the future, Mark, but obviously it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Toronto with this Matthews signing and their whole cap situation. And do you think they'll be able to extend Nylander for next season?
I think the biggest thing is both camps are kind of maybe waiting out to see what either side does. I think if Matthews does end up taking a discount, say you get him at a 3 to 5 year range at 12 and a half, 12, any lower you'd be pushing it. But I think once he kind of steps in, signs his contract, if it's a team friendly contract that he kind of takes just to make this core a little easier to build around, I think that's where you're looking to Nylander's camp to do around the same. Nylander's current contract, I think, is one of the best in the league. You've seen situations where his agent kind of holds him out a little bit, so it might get a little tricky at the end. But I think there's going to be no issue signing both guys. And with Tavares and Marner going into their final year next year, I think Tavares is going to start taking that team-friendly discount. His cap hit should hit a decent bit. And I don't think Marner's going to get too much of a raise. Do I think he's worth a raise? For sure. He's one of the best defensive wingers in the league. But I don't think he's going to be asking for anything outrageous like 13 and a half, 14, 15 kind of range.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. Like, obviously, Morgan Riley's only making 7.5, which is really good for them. And I don't know what Nylander's going to be looking for, obviously, but I'd say it'll be up around the $9-10 million range if I was to guess. And like you said, if Matthews does take a team deal, because obviously all these players at the end of the day want to win a Stanley Cup. And I do believe that Matthews wants to bring the Stanley Cup to Toronto because hasn't been there since '67. Sorry to rub it in, but obviously if he can make that happen in any way he can, I believe he will. It just seems like the type of person he is. But we'll have to see what happens, obviously, because if Nylander's asking for a lot, and it's definitely, like I said, it's interesting because Marner is up next year, and well, obviously Tavares. I don't think we need to worry about Tavares too much because I think he's the captain. I think he will take a hometown cut a little bit, but I think Marner. I think he's definitely a $11.5 million player. I think that'd be a great signing to keep him there, but like I said, if Matthews somehow gets 14 to 15 million this year, it's going to be hard to keep all these guys there. But What do you think about that, Mark? Like with the cap going up and everything, do you think that the Leafs are going to sign Marner to like a higher deal, or do you think Nylander is? What do you think Nylander will get?
I think Nylander's probably going to start asking for around the $10 million range. He's seen a 40 goal scorer, guy that can produce. You know, the defense isn't always there, but he's kind of growing pains with him working through what he can. So it's the weird thing of, maybe they're fighting between that extra million, the term on that, stuff like that. I do think it's going to get worked out maybe around the $9.5 million range. Hopefully, you can push it down to nine over a 7 or 8 year span. Like we were saying, Tavares is getting up in age. I think out of these four guys, I do think he is the one that's most likely going to take a huge pay cut on his next one just to kind of be the hometown boy, bring the cup back to Toronto, be the next mayor of Toronto if he wants to be, if he brings the cup home. But I think it's all going to work out. The Leafs team's going to work through this, figure out the dollar signs and then just get all four of these people signed so the media doesn't have to talk about it no more.
Yeah, definitely. And I have to agree with you there. I think that Trev Living and the Leafs organization are going to try to get all these guys back if they can. And I think if they can get them all back for another 3 to 5 years, I think there's definitely a cup in the Toronto Maple Leafs future. But we'd like to hear what your guys' take on all this down in the comment section below. What do you think Matthews is going to sign for? Do you agree with what we think? Do you think he's going to get a little more? Do you think he's going to get a little less? We'd like to hear what you guys say down in the comments. We've been going through them over the last little while, and we love hearing what you guys have to say, and just gives us more knowledge towards our videos, especially on teams that we don't know that much about. So thank you for all your support, leaving likes on the videos and commenting. We really appreciate it. But I've been KC, alongside my co-host Mark Pye. Keep your stick on the ice.